Hi everyone. I wasn't looking for a reason to walk away. If anything, I was trying to get closer. For years in, our marriage had settled into a rhythm. Quiet, reliable, and maybe a little too easy to ignore. Sandra and I weren't the kind of couple who posted anniversary photos with long, heartfelt captions or argued in grocery store aisles. We got along. We traveled when we could. We hosted the occasional dinner for friends. From the outside, we looked like people who had it figured out. Inside, though, there were cracks. Not the kind that exploded into fights or ultimatums, but the subtle kind of distancing that was hard to name. She was always tired. I was always busy. Our conversations, when they happened, sounded more like calendar syncs than actual connection. Did you remember to pick up the dry cleaning? What time is your meeting tomorrow? Should we RSVP to Daniel's wedding or just send a gift? The one topic I never pushed was kids. Sandra had always said she wasn't ready, that it wasn't the right time, that she didn't want to rush something that serious. And I respected that. Maybe too much. I told myself we'd revisit it later, when things were better, when we were traveling less, when her job stabilized, when life gave us permission to slow down. So I planned something. Nothing wild. Just a 4-day getaway to Montreal. Somewhere quieter than our usual city breaks, but still charming. Sandra loved old architecture, the kind with intricate details that made her pause mid-walk to run her fingers over stone walls. And pastries, the kind that took 20 minutes to make, but disappeared in 3 bites. I booked it 2 months in advance. Lined up dinner reservations at places she'd love. Even found a boutique hotel with a heated rooftop patio. I wanted it to feel thoughtful. That night, after she fell asleep on the couch mid-episode, something she'd been doing more often lately, I grabbed her laptop from the coffee table. The soft glow of the screen cast a pale light on her face as she breathed evenly, lost in sleep. I hesitated for a second, watching her. There was something about how peaceful she looked that made me wonder if she'd been this exhausted for longer than I'd noticed. Shaking the thought away, I clicked open her browser and pulled up our travel documents. Just a small detail, but I wanted to make sure she wouldn't forget to bring them. She was the kind of person who misplaced printed boarding passes and assumed Google Calendar synced itself. I had learned that early on, which was why I made it a habit to keep digital backups of our travel plans. It was just one of those small, unspoken roles I played in our marriage. The one who planned, who remembered, who made sure nothing slipped through the cracks. I opened her laptop, intending nothing more than to drag the travel documents into a folder so she wouldn't forget. But as the screen lit up, her Messages app popped open automatically. Probably hadn't been shut down properly. I wasn't looking for anything. I didn't even touch the keyboard. But my eyes landed on a single message, sitting right there in the corner of the screen, stark and undeniable. I never wanted his children. I wanted yours. No context. No emojis. Just that. Plain and simple. I froze. My body went completely still, like my brain hadn't caught up with what my eyes had already processed. For a moment, I just stared at it, waiting for it to make sense in a way that wouldn't gut me. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe. I reached for the trackpad, heart hammering but hands steady, and clicked the message. The thread opened. It wasn't new. It went back months. Some messages were flirtatious, teasing in a way I hadn't seen from her in years. Others were more casual, day-to-day check-ins, little updates, things she hadn't bothered to tell me. But then there were the ones loaded with subtext. You have no idea how often I still think about you. He's a good man, safe, predictable, but you always made me feel alive. For more months, and I'm free. And the one that made my stomach turn, the one sent on the same day I booked our anniversary trip. He's planning something for our anniversary. I'm going to act surprised. The timestamp lined up to the hour I had confirmed our hotel. I didn't move. I didn't slam the laptop shut, or wake her up, or throw anything across the room. Instead, I just sat there, listening. The quiet hum of the fridge. The shallow rhythm of her breathing from the couch. I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity. The kind that only comes when the fog lifts. When you finally see how far off course you've drifted. And in that silence, the memories started surfacing. The things I had ignored, excused, brushed off because I had trusted her. Like how she had rushed us into marriage when her student visa was about to expire. She had pushed hard for me to sponsor her green card application. At the time, it felt natural, expected even. We were married, and this was just part of the process. I never thought twice about it. But looking back now, I could see all the moments I had ignored. All the signs I had brushed aside. She never liked talking about her ex whenever I asked. She'd give vague answers or change the subject entirely. It's just not worth rehashing. She'd say with a small, dismissive wave of her hand. I assumed it was a painful breakup. Everyone has parts of their past they'd rather leave behind, and I respected that. But now I wondered if the real reason was far simpler. If he was still in the picture in ways I hadn't realized. Every delay, every half answer, every time she said not yet when I brought up starting a family. It wasn't about timing. It was about me. I didn't say anything the next morning. She woke up late, groggy, stretching as she walked into the kitchen. Hey, did you turn off my laptop last night? It was acting weird this morning. I shook my head casually, barely glancing up from my coffee. No, probably just a sleep issue. She shrugged, not pressing the issue. Made coffee, kissed me on the cheek, started talking about the new office manager she hated. Completely normal. And I let it be normal because I needed her to think nothing had changed. That day at work, I didn't focus on a single task. My body was at my desk, my hands moved my mouse, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. I kept replaying the timeline. Not just the messages. Those were already burned into my brain, but everything that came before. The pattern. We got married 11 months after meeting. Fast but not crazy. I remember she told me she didn't want a big wedding. Said it wasn't her style. Why waste all that money on one day? She'd reasoned. And I thought it was refreshing, no drama, no massive guest list. Just us. We went to the courthouse, had 2 witnesses, and grabbed lunch afterward. It was simple, easy. At the time, I had even admired her practicality. But what I didn't connect back then was the timing. She was in her final month of OPT, the optional practical training period international students get after graduating. After that, she'd either need to find a company to sponsor her work visa, or leave the country. I knew that. She told me, but I hadn't put the pieces together. A month later, we filed for her green card. I remember sitting at the dining table with her, going over the paperwork. She handed me a form to sign, Form I-864, the affidavit of support. This basically just proves you'll support me if I ever need it, she said, flipping casually through the pages. I frowned, scanning the fine print. It says here, I'd be financially responsible for you for up to 10 years. Even if we divorce. She laughed lightly, rolling her eyes. It's just a formality. Everyone signs it. No big deal. I remember the way she smiled, how effortlessly she brushed it off. Like it was nothing. Like it was no big deal. I remember not wanting to look insecure by pushing back, so I signed. I told myself it was just paperwork, just another step in the process of building a life together. Now, for years later, I was sitting in our dimly lit apartment, staring at the cracks in our foundation. Cracks I had ignored for far too long. No kids. No shared property. No joint investments. Just one quietly decaying relationship built on what I was starting to believe had never been real to begin with. That's when I called Ben. We hadn't spoken in a couple of years. He was an immigration lawyer. I had built a custom CRM tool for back when I was freelancing. A smart guy. Direct. No fluff. If there was anyone who could give me a straight answer, it was him. He picked up after 2 rings. Tyler? Man, it's been a while. Yeah, it has. I took a breath, steadying myself. Listen, I've got some questions about a marriage-based green card situation. Hypothetical. Ben didn't waste time. Is she a conditional green card holder or permanent? I pulled up our records. Permanent. Her 2-year conditional period passed. She got her 10-year card last year. Okay, he said. You're past the phase where USCIS checks for legitimacy. But if you have reason to believe the marriage was fraudulent, entered into solely for immigration benefits, you can still report it. My grip on the phone tightened. How seriously do they take that? Pretty seriously, Ben said without hesitation. But you need documentation, a timeline, communications, emails, texts, anything that shows intent. I already had the screenshots, not just the one message, the entire thread, dates, times, mentions of our anniversary, her saying things like 4 more months and I'm free. Ben continued, if you submit a report, it won't immediately trigger deportation or anything dramatic, but it will flag her case. If they find grounds, it could open a fraud investigation. I exhaled slowly. And the affidavit of support? Form I-864, he asked. Yeah, you'll want to file Form I-865. That's how you withdraw your sponsorship. It won't cancel your obligations retroactively, but it signals that you're ending support now and that you suspect fraud. It helps your case. I thanked him and hung up. Then I got to work. I started backing up everything. Screenshots of the texts, the full laptop message thread, calendar logs showing when I booked the trip, photos, emails, bank statements, every piece of documentation tied to the time we filed her green card application. By the end of the night, I had a folder labeled I-865 evidence packet. Sandra sitting on my desktop, a neatly organized digital dossier detailing every lie, every hidden intention, every breadcrumb I had been too blind or too trusting to see before. And yet, Sandra still thought we were going to Montreal. She gushed about the trip like she hadn't just sent another man a message saying she wanted his children. She even left a post-it on my desk one morning that said, "You're too good to me." She wasn't wrong. The first thing I did was file Form I-865 withdrawal of sponsor. USCIS doesn't let you just hit undo on the affidavit of support. I-864. But this form at least notifies them that I no longer intend to sponsor her financially. It didn't free me from the legal obligation entirely. That would take either her becoming self-sufficient or them officially revoking her status. But it was a start, the beginning of drawing a line in the sand. I wrote a cover letter. No accusations, no name-calling, just facts. I outlined a timeline of our marriage, attached screenshots of her messages with Louise, and highlighted how they coincided with major immigration milestones. Our wedding date, her green card application, and now her messages about waiting out our marriage. I detailed how she had kept her relationship with Louise hidden while legally tying herself to me for status. I sent everything through Ben just to make sure it was airtight. From there, I began the process of untangling our lives. Step 1. Financial separation. We had a joint checking account, though we barely used it, mostly for shared travel expenses. I went through every transaction, categorized them, and moved my portion into a new account under my name only. That part was easy. Next, I closed the joint credit card. I printed out the statements, labeled everything, and filed it away. Paper trail. Always have a paper trail. Step 2. Credit and identity protection. I locked my credit file with all 3 bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Not paranoia, just precaution. She had access to everything. My social security number, my accounts, my passwords. If her life started to crumble, I didn't want to be the backup wallet. Then, I removed her as an authorized user from my Amex and Chase cards quietly. She didn't get a notification when I removed her from my Amex and Chase cards. They just stopped working. Step 3. Insurance and assets. Next, I tackled insurance. She was still on my health plan through work, but open enrollment had just rolled around. I filed for removal under the change in domestic circumstance clause. Valid. Permanent. No loopholes. The car she drove was technically mine. I'd let her use it because she didn't own one, and it was easier that way. But not anymore. While she was out at brunch with her friends, I transferred the vehicle fully into my name, then took back the keys. I wasn't reckless about it. I didn't want her stranded, didn't want to give her ammunition to play the victim. So, I rented a clean, registered, fully insured car for the next week and left it parked in the garage. Everything I did came with receipts. Every action was clean, logged, and irreversible. And Sandra? She had no clue. She still thought we were going to Montreal. She still smiled at me like nothing was wrong. She even asked me one night while curled up on the couch, "Do you think we should start trying for kids in the next year or two?" I think I'm finally warming up to the idea. I almost laughed. Instead, I just nodded, kept my expression neutral, and said, "Let's talk about it after the trip." She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and went back to watching her show. By the end of the week, everything she thought we had was already gone. The last thing I did before leaving was log into our USCIS account. I typed out a sworn statement, under penalty of perjury, stating that I believe this marriage had been entered into in bad faith for the sole purpose of obtaining immigration benefits. I confirmed my willingness to cooperate fully with any investigation and attached all relevant communications as evidence. Then, I uploaded the entire evidence packet, marked it for fraud review, and clicked submit. With that, I packed my bag. I didn't take the suitcase she'd packed for the trip. I left it by the door, untouched, with the Montreal ticket confirmation tucked into the front pocket. She could still go, just not with me. That night, I checked into a short-term rental across town. She was asleep when I left. Saturday morning, the day of the trip. The first call came at 8:03 a.m. I let it ring. The second at 8:07. By the third, I turned my phone face down and sipped my coffee. By 9 a.m., she had called me 7 times. I watched the screen light up again. The phone sat face down on the kitchen table, next to my half-drunk cup of coffee, the steam long gone. The calls kept coming. 8, 9, 10. I let them ring. Her voicemails started casual. "Hey babe, are you running late?" Then, confused. "Where are you?" "I'm at the gate." "Did you oversleep?" Then, annoyed. "Brian, this isn't funny. Call me." Now, the last one wasn't words, just breathing. Then a whispered, broken plea. "Please just call me." I didn't. There was nothing to say. I had left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter. No note, no missing suitcase, no dramatic goodbye, just absence. By noon, she started texting mutual friends. By 3 p.m., my phone buzzed with a message from Carla. "Carla, hey. Sandra says you just left. What's going on?" I stared at the screen, then turned it off. Not yet, because the story wasn't finished. Instead, I handled logistics. I scheduled a mail hold at our apartment. Anything important was rerouted to a box I controlled. I canceled the utilities I'd been paying for. Water, gas, internet. Nothing was shut off, just transferred into her name. That night, I got a notification from USPS Informed Delivery. A government envelope had been scanned. Return address, USCIS, Department of Homeland Security. 3 days later, Sandra got it. It wasn't a removal notice. Not yet. That's not how this works. It was a request for evidence. An RFE, tied to her I-751 marriage-based residency renewal. Even though she already had her 10-year green card, she was in the middle of a status reassessment. A quiet USCIS review where cases get randomly selected or flagged after a fraud tip. They don't call. They don't warn. They just send the letter. Inside, it was formal, clinical. Please provide evidence supporting the ongoing legitimacy of your marriage, including but not limited to photos, joint accounts, leases, shared assets, communications, and affidavits. At the bottom, in fine print, this review has been triggered by third-party submitted documentation. Sandra called me 11 times that day. I was at Ben's office reviewing the next steps. Ben exhaled, skimming the letter. "She's panicking," he said. "They don't send these unless something's already in motion." I nodded. "I already knew that." "You want to make contact?" he asked. "No," I said. "Not yet." That night, the call stopped. Instead, I got a long email. Subject line, blank. First sentence. "I deserve an explanation." She didn't apologize. Her email was long, but it wasn't an apology. She asked why I had done this, said she was confused, that she was scared, that she felt attacked. But she never mentioned Louis. Not once. Instead, she framed it like I just lost it, like I'd abandoned her out of nowhere, like I was unstable and irrational. That's when I replied, One sentence. You didn't want my children, Sandra. You won't get my silence either. I didn't hear from her for 3 days. When I finally did, it was another message. Unknown number. Just one sentence. Louis won't answer me. Of course he wouldn't. I had included his name and his social handles in the evidence packet. Not out of pettiness, but out of precision. Sandra wasn't the only one being reviewed now. 3 weeks later, the second envelope arrived. I didn't see her open it, but I didn't need to. I already knew the look she'd have on her face before the letter even hit the floor. I've seen people realize they just lost everything before. It doesn't look like panic. It looks like stillness. The notice was forwarded to Ben's office, where I read it in silence. USCI's Notice of Intent to Deny I-751 Petition for Removal of Conditions on Residency. In short, they had reviewed my packet, cross-referenced the timelines, examined the messages, and flagged multiple inconsistencies in Sandra's application. They weren't removing her yet, but they were denying her next step. Her file was now marked for fraud review escalation, meaning it would be subject to further inquiry, and she would be placed in supervised immigration status pending the outcome. Translation: her green card was now in limbo. Her work authorization would not auto-renew. She could no longer leave the country without triggering abandonment of her status. And the worst part? She had to prove our marriage was real. Without me, she couldn't, because it wasn't. I heard from a mutual friend that she tried to contact Louis again. No reply. One of her old college friends told someone I knew that Sandra had made some mistakes, that she might have to leave. Her work visa was tied to her green card. The nonprofit she worked for was notified of the pending change in her status. They didn't fire her, but they paused her promotion. HR review said it was just a formality. That's how it starts. Sandra texted me one more time. You didn't have to destroy my life. I stared at the message for a full minute before replying. I didn't. You built it on a countdown. No response. That was the last I heard from her. 2 months later, I cleaned out the garage. It was mostly her stuff. Old college books, a broken chair she swore she'd repair, and one unopened box shoved into the corner behind the water heater. I knew what it was before I even touched it. The baby shoes. I had ordered them 2 years earlier. In one of those quiet, hopeful moments when I thought maybe, just maybe, we were getting close to having the conversation for real. I never gave them to her. I don't even remember why. They were still wrapped in tissue paper, untouched, size 0, soft blue. I didn't keep them. Instead, I took them to a shelter down the street, a place that supports new immigrant families. I dropped them off at the front desk, along with a sealed envelope taped to the lid. Inside was a handwritten note, for someone ready to build a future, not borrow one. The receptionist didn't ask questions, and I didn't leave a name. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.